If we are limiting how we're able to express real emotions that we're feeling because we believe we're supposed to only be feeling the joy, even subconsciously, that is very likely going to impact how we actually do experience joy.
Welcome to the Sparkle Project. I'm Emily, a divorced mom of two on my own journey to shine a little brighter. This podcast is here to help you protect your sparkle amidst the chaos and impossible expectations of modern motherhood. If you're a mom ready to choose yourself and shine, you are in the right place. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to the Sparkle Project. I have been on quite a transformational journey over the last few years, and one of the biggest parts of that journey has been learning how to connect with joy, how to experience joy. There was a long period of my life where I would be going through my days, doing things that were supposed to be fun, spending time with people who I loved and truly wanted to be around, but couldn't quite access joy. I would often find myself thinking, is this it? Like, is there something more, or is this the happiest I'll ever be? And of course, as I'm raising these kids, these beautiful kids who I love with everything in my soul, and having those thoughts at the same time, there's all this guilt and shame that comes along with that. But I've done a lot of work over the last few years, and a lot in my life has changed. And my capacity to experience joy has grown alongside all of that work and change. And I can confidently say that wasn't it. There was so much more joy for me to be experiencing. Nothing was wrong with me back then, but I was living out of alignment with what I truly wanted and needed in life. And I talked to so many women and so many moms who also have similar experiences where they're just not quite able to tap into joy. And I want to talk about it because I've learned a thing or two or more in the last few years, and I want to share it with you. Because if you are in a period of life where experiencing joy feels nearly impossible, you don't have to stay stuck there. There are things you can do to move forward in a more present, connected, and joyful way. So today we're going to be talking about some of the things that might be blocking your joy. The mindsets and environmental realities that keep you feeling stuck in dissatisfaction and unfulfillment. And before we jump into those blocks, I want to note two really important things. First of all, I am not talking about mental health conditions such as depression and anxiety that may be stopping you from joy. If you are experiencing depression, if you are experiencing any other mental health condition, please seek help from a therapist or another mental health professional. That is not within my scope of expertise, and it's not what we're going to be covering here in this episode. And I also want to say that this is not about trying to enjoy every moment. In fact, that's going to be something we actually talk about as something that keeps us from joy when we are trying to enjoy every moment. That toxic positivity nonsense is so unhelpful in motherhood, and it is so not something that I want to even be associated with perpetuating. So now that we have that out of the way, let's get into it. What is blocking you from joy in your life? As I get into all these different mindsets and concepts, I want to explain something that underlies all of this. Joy is slightly different than happiness. Even though we talk about joy and happiness as the same thing, the same emotion, there is a difference. Happiness is a momentary state of being, like being sad, being mad, being happy. It is an emotion that comes up in the moment, and you can experience happiness just like you can experience sadness, just like you can experience anger. Joy is different in that we're talking more about a state of being across time. It's more of this underlying tone to life. You can have a solid capacity to experience joy and still be dealing with something that is causing grief, still be dealing with something that's making you really angry in the moment. But joy is that underlying thread under all of it. And this is where in my own life, pre-divorce, while I was raising these little babies and feeling totally just like disconnected from myself, I did not have that foundation of joy. This place that I was acting from was not a place of feeling grateful for my life. Not because I didn't want to feel grateful for my life, not because I didn't want to feel joyful, but because it just wasn't there. I was living in such a state of disalignment from what I really wanted and needed to what I actually had in front of me that my neutral was nowhere close to joyful. And that alignment piece is going to be a huge part of everything we talk about in this episode. I know that term alignment can feel a bit jargony, like what exactly are we talking about? But here's really the gist of it. When you are living in a way that is out of alignment, that means you are living in a way where what you're doing in your day-to-day, the way you are showing up, the way you're surrounding yourself with other people, the way you're presenting yourself, the decisions you're making are not matching up to the values that you hold internally. They're not matching up with the needs you actually have. They're not matching up with what you truly want out of life. And so you continue showing up and you're not getting the true benefit of any of it because it doesn't match up with what you need and what you want and what matters to you. And when there is so much in our life that is out of alignment, it is really hard to feel good and solid in what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So pretty much everything that we're going to be talking about has to do with being out of alignment and figuring out how to close that gap between what is it actually happening in your life and what you want, what you need, what matters to you. So let's get into it. One of the biggest blocks to joy that I see so many moms facing and have absolutely faced myself is a disconnection from self. When you don't actually know what you want, when you don't know what you need, how are you supposed to be getting that? When we are so disconnected from who we truly are that we can't tell what actually would bring us joy, we are relying way too much on chance. And we are falling into cycles and patterns where we are just consistently missing the mark with the way we're showing up, the people we're surrounding ourselves by, and what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. And of course, we have so many conversations about how motherhood can act as this sort of pull away from who you are. We talk about feeling lost in motherhood. We talk about not feeling like yourself in motherhood. There's a lot of reasons for that. We've talked about that on other episodes, but it really is just this really ripe environment for feeling disconnection from self. When you are disconnected from yourself, there's a very high likelihood that you are going to be living out of alignment. And when you are living out of alignment, you are not going to feel satisfied in the day-to-day. So finding ways to reconnect with yourself, to really get intentional about what it is that you want and need is so, so crucial to being able to experience real joy in your life. Another block from joy that I see again and again with women that I talk to is disconnection from others. And this often ties back to that disconnection from self. When we don't really know who we truly are and we're not really showing up as our full selves, it really does impact how we interact with and connect with others. I actually just had a conversation with Bailey Hancock on the Sparkle Project podcast about how a major component of being able to have meaningful friendships with other people is having a solid foundation of knowledge of who you are, that internal connection. So many of us are living disconnected lives from the people around us. We don't necessarily feel truly seen. And a critical part of the human experience is having a sense of belonging. Like we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and understanding that as human beings, we all need to belong. It's like literally a survival thing for us. And so if we are feeling disconnected from everyone else, we do not necessarily feel like we truly belong anywhere. That's going to have a very real impact on our foundation that we're showing up every day with. It is really, really challenging and even maybe impossible to really be able to get to a place where you can experience true joy based on alignment in your life when you are disconnected from yourself and also therefore disconnected from other people in your life. We have to work on that internal clarity of what we value, what we need, what we want in our lives if we want to have those foundations of alignment that we're showing up with that allow us then to live with joy as the baseline. Moving on to another block to joy that I have experienced and I see so many other moms experience. This is the guilt that comes along when we feel anything else but joy. This idea to enjoy every moment as a mom is thrown around like nobody's business. And we all know it's not possible. It's just not. But our culture perpetuates this idea that even if it's not possible, you still should be enjoying it all. You should be infinitely grateful for everything you have. And that mindset leaves absolutely no space for our actual lived experiences. Because the thing is, motherhood is not all enjoyable. There are a lot of parts of it that absolutely suck. Plus, on top of raising our children, we're also living very complex lives. There is heartbreak, there is loss, there is plenty of space for grief. There is anger about what's going on in our world. There is fear, deep fear that so many of us experience. It is totally normal and very human to feel complex things. Like, that's just part of being human. But when we feel guilt because we're not living up to these societal expectations that we're a mom and we will enjoy every moment, and we make that guilt mean something about us, it turns into shame and it festers within us. Like, there's something wrong with me because I am not enjoying every moment of motherhood. I'm feeling really crappy today. I'm experiencing deep sadness because of something else going on in my life, and that's impacting how I show up for my kids. Or I'm just really angry about something that happened at breakfast this morning. If we are limiting how we're able to express real emotions that we're feeling because we believe we're supposed to only be feeling the joy, even subconsciously, that is very likely going to impact how we actually do experience joy. Because again, we are not listening to what we actually need when we are pushing all of those feelings down. We need to express it. We need to feel the things that we are feeling. And when we don't, we completely cut off our capacity for joy, for that deep satisfaction that comes along with living a life in alignment. And so we have to do away with this mindset, again, that we know is not a real thing. This idea that we should enjoy every moment, that is what the ideal mom does. Because we're never going to. And holding ourselves to that standard is not helping us or anyone else. The next block for joy that I see a lot, especially in motherhood, is this comparison trap. As Theodore Roosevelt said, comparison is the thief of joy. When you are constantly comparing yourself to other people and constantly feeling like you are supposed to be doing what they're doing, you're supposed to be showing up the way they're showing up. Again, it takes us away from alignment with what we as individuals need, what we as individuals want, and the values we hold. If our standard that we're trying to live up to is somebody else's standard, whether that is the societal belief of what it means to be a good mom, or just somebody we see on Instagram, the way they're living life and they seem happy, so we should be attaining that. Well, those things don't actually have anything to do with what it means for ourselves as individuals to live in alignment. So not only is the thing we're trying to attain not what will actually bring us to that place of alignment and get us to a place where our capacity for joy is where we'd like it to be, but it also contributes then to this idea that we're not doing enough. We're not showing up in the way that good moms are supposed to show up. And that leads to the guilt, that leads to the frustration with ourselves. It leads to all these things that make us just feel really shitty about who we are and leads to more internal disconnection. So of course, comparing yourself to somebody else, and we all do it. We all do this. I mean, it's basically impossible not to because we're being so inundated with content and like images of what other people are experiencing. But we have to get mindful of it. We have to stop and think, is what I'm comparing myself to something that I actually truly deeply want and need in my life? We have to acknowledge those thought patterns so that we can get out of this comparison trap. And when we stop holding ourselves to somebody else's standards of what it means to be doing this whole mother thing in the right way, whatever that means, that's when we can come to a place of living in alignment and feeling and experiencing true joy. Another block to joy that I have to call out because it's something I think most of us probably deal with regularly, especially in just the absolute chaos of the world and how we are being so inundated with information all of the time, is a lack of mindfulness and presence. What do I mean by that? When we are not in the present moment, often it's pretty damn near impossible to be experiencing joy in that present moment. If we're not creating space for ourselves to acknowledge and appreciate what's going on around us, we're not creating opportunities to experience joy. And with so many things constantly vying for our attention, it's absolutely understandable why so many of us struggle to be present in the moment. Like, our world is made and created to pull us away from the current moment. We are constantly scrolling our phones. We are always thinking about what that deadline is at work. We have so many things we're trying to do with our kids, getting them to soccer practice, figuring out homework, trying to navigate bedtime, all the things. And we are comparing ourselves to other people through it all. We have to really intentionally create moments of presence in our lives. Set the phone down, drink the coffee in a cute mug, and take a moment just to look at it and smile. Because quite literally, if we do not create intentional moments for presence and mindfulness, if we do not work on developing this skill, the world will make sure that we are disconnected from the present moment. And we will continue not being able to tap in and experience the joy that we're deserving of. And the last block to joy that I want to share with you today is one that is very, very, very relevant to my own life. And this is the idea of accepting comfort and security over what will actually bring you joy. And when I say comfort and security, I'm not even necessarily talking about what's actually comfortable or what's actually secure. But I think we all kind of have this idea of like, we've found something that is our comfort zone, or we're in a job that feels really secure. And we accept that because it is what it is. And sometimes it's actually the thing that is blocking us from joy. You might find yourself stuck in a toxic job or in a relationship that just really no longer serves you, whether that's with a romantic partner or friends or family members who really bring you down. In my own life, I have had a major career change from an elementary school teacher. I had my master's in curriculum and instruction. Like, I was dedicated to this role as an elementary school teacher. This was my secure, stable job, and it was draining the life out of me. And a huge part of my journey was recognizing that that comfort and security that I had created in my mind actually was making me really, really, really uncomfortable. I also went through a separation and divorce. I was in a relationship that really was no longer serving me. And it was really hard for me to feel joy when I was in a relationship that felt so unaligned with what I needed in my life. And of course, it doesn't always mean that we're leaving jobs. It doesn't always mean that we're breaking up with our partners, right? Like, that's not what I mean by saying that we've accepted comfort and security. Sometimes it's much smaller things that we feel like we should be doing because it's the right, comfortable thing to do. But when we really sit and think about it, it might be something that's actually pulling you away from that alignment in your life. And it's actually blocking you from joy. And we have to get out of autopilot long enough to actually look at and evaluate the things in our lives and seeing if those things are helping us or keeping us stuck in these cycles we don't want to be stuck in. We all deserve to feel joy. And in a world where there are so many factors blocking us from experiencing that joy, we have to get intentional about doing the personal work to shift our life to a place where we do have more capacity for joy. There's obviously so much more I could say. There's so much more we could get into in each of these areas, and hopefully we'll be able to at some point. But I hope that this conversation got you thinking. If you are having a hard time experiencing joy in your day-to-day life with things that you really think should be joyful, consider where there is unalignment in your life. Consider the places that you're disconnected from yourself. Consider where you're not thinking about your values, but actually holding yourself to somebody else's standards. Because I'll say it one more time, you deserve to feel joy, and it is possible. Now, once again, if you are dealing with mental health issues, depression, anxiety, anything else like that, please make sure that you seek support from a mental health professional. I am so appreciative of you being here. This was a conversation I've been really looking forward to having, and I'm just so glad that you tuned in, and hopefully there's something in here that you can take and start to make changes in your own life to bring you a little bit closer to that baseline of joy. If you found value in this episode, don't hesitate to share it with another mom friend in your life who might also benefit. And please consider leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It means the world to me, and it also just helps other moms who find the show see if it might be a good fit for them. We will leave it at that this week. Keep on shining.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Sparkle Project. Loved what you heard? Share this episode with a friend, and don't forget to leave a rating and review to show your support for the show. We'll be back next week with another episode. See you then.